Okay, so hello everyone, good afternoon, and hope your day is going well. Uh, Mindclusive is a student promoted initiative that began with our collaborating organization, Insight, as a life project during an internship. And here we are now directly engaging people and promoting a holistic approach to life and developing developing inclusive mindsets. This is what basically Mindclusive is all about. And at Mindclusive, we believe that inclusion cannot be achieved with just having accessible public spaces, job reservations, and free healthcare. It is the attitude of the people that must be changed if we are to be truly inclusive in the society. After all, inclusion is not just tolerance, but unquestioned acceptance. So, the honored speaker, Mr. Vijay Kant, is among us, and he has been the first national director of Special Olympics India for 10 years. He was also a part of the Inclusion International as the country manager um, of the Parent Mobilization Action Group India, which was a joint venture of Inclusion International and Parivar, and later on became the chief operations manager of Parivar. He has also built the Self Advocates Forum of India, which is a DPO organization for people with intellectual disabilities for the very first time in the country. He is currently an independent consultant with CBM and is a member of the Archiro Sen Commission of Differently Abled Bangalore and the Karnataka's Parents Association for Mentally Retarded Citizens Governing Council. So, Sir will be sharing his insights about why you should why you should empathize and not sympathize with people with disabilities. So, over to you, sir. You can begin your presentation. We are,
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the welcome. And I'm glad that this is the first time that I'm addressing somebody online. So I
yeah,
may feel little different, but all the same, I've been in the field of disability all my life since my college days.
yes,
Like you are all doing it now. Way back in 1970s and 80s, there was hardly anything to call a center for disability or their services were very, very limited at that time. So it was a chance meeting that I had. And then first time when I encountered these people, I was wondering, are there people like this in the world? That was my first reaction to people with intellectual disabilities, which I have not seen or heard before I was already in the first year of my college. So that was my first encounter, and since then I have been part and parcel of the life of people with intellectual disabilities, doing various things for their empowerment. And we think about empathy, but those days the word never occurred to anyone, including the policymakers, that we need to empathize with them, not sympathize with them. And that is, as you in your remarks said in the beginning, that it is a mind change. Without that, the inclusion cannot take place at all. It has to come within oneself in order to make that inclusion possible. I just want you to think about when you encountered a person in your life, what was your reaction at the time? I don't want any answers, but just reflect on that and to understand uh, what you would do if you now, since you have more awareness, your attitude may be different. But I have found that people within the field working with the disability have no empathetic attitude. That's the biggest problem. We always thought it was a service, a charity that we are doing. So everything from my point of view, that the child needs to follow or grow in the, in the environment. We were the only one who would guide them, and they have no right to tell them what they want. The special educators or any educator, the beginning, were only being one-way traffic, that they need to do whatever I tell them to do. But that was part of even the law at the time. Even in United Nations recommended to people how they need to treat them. But it was always on a charity mode. It took a long time until, say, 2006, when the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with a Disability came into being, that they are not a receiver of our services, but it is their right to have the services provided to them. The right-based mode, from charity to social model to right-based model, we have come through. And that is where we are at the moment. So it is the right time for us to think about, reflect on our attitude first. When I was working in Parivar, I always used this slogan, uh, attitude is the biggest barrier for inclusion of persons with disabilities in the community. That is, you can go to my screen so that we can talk about it. So this is very much true even today for inclusion of people with disabilities. Although we have come a long way in providing various accessibility services, but not enough has been done in order to make them feel that they are on their own and welcome to be part of the larger community. Still, there are barriers that appear in physical as well as mental, that still keeps them in the charity mode. We need to change that. And that is why we are talking about sympathy versus empathy. We have very, our knowledge, our idea of a disability image can be seen through them. They are not, as we think, that they are tragic and pitiful, helpless. Sometimes they are vengeful, sometimes they are angry. That is not the real image of people with a disability. Today we think about, they think they do things differently. They see themselves as it's an identity that they have the same needs and aspirations, desires as any other person. It is not that they don't have the feelings or anything. Even in the classroom or even in the public life, we see a lot of them have their ideas, but yet they are not respected by the community. Although they are able to contribute much, that we don't provide them the opportunity to realize their potential and be a contributing member. And they also need access to the same opportunities that you and other people enjoy in the community and in the society. That is, although our constitution talks about equal rights, full participation, but it's only in the words, it's in the paper, but nothing really in real life we see such an attitude or opportunity given to people with disabilities. So we need to change that image of our thinking people with disabilities. Some are very visible. There are more invisible disabilities whom we don't even know how to deal with them or recognize them. Even if a hearing impaired person get into the bus and then asks the conductor behind him, keeps on shouting at him, where do you want to go? You buy the ticket, but he is not able to hear. So it turns out to be violence against him. He pushed out of the bus, not knowing. The problem is with the society, not with the individual. We are not able to recognize that there is some problem with the other person. We need to find a way how to deal with it. So this is how things are happening, and the image of disability needs to change. I don't know what happened to my. Can anyone?
What happened, sir?
It is not moving. It is stuck. Okay, fine, fine. Because we are very familiar with the word sympathy, and not only with the people with a disability, it's for everyone. We always jump into the emotional side of people, whether you are family members or friends. We feel bad about certain things. The same way, we feel very uh, bad about people with the disabilities. The feeling of it's a very sympathetic attitude. I want to help them. We are we don't see them that they can help themselves. We want to see that we need to help them, and that's where the problem lies. That we don't recognize that they have the ability to uh, do things on their own. We always think that they need our own need to be helped so that they will feel comfortable. We don't see the sense. We always feel the sense of helplessness in the other people than thinking about what they can do themselves through an attitude of empathy. Empathy is uh, sharing their emotion, sympathy. In, in total contrast from the emotion of sympathy comes the term empathy. Understanding the pain of a person goes through his own perspective. It is like imagining yourself in his or her shoes and living the life they go through, and then deciding if your actions can hurt them or not. So, whereas in the case of sympathy, we don't bother about whether it's going to hurt them, or then we simply jump in and trying to take over the life of that particular individual. And the psychologists say empathizing is the best kind of affection you can offer to a person with a disability. And it is very important for people dealing with victims of mental or physical disability to understand the difference between sympathy and empathy and the significance of the latter. A person, irrespective of the world-class medical facilities, can still get offended with just a word from your mouth, and it won't take a minute for all the sympathizing and pitying to backfire on you. Everything you say, very verbally or non-verbally, including body language, counts up to the kind of response you will get in the treatment and in general life. Empathizing with someone who has dealt with all the pities before can actually turn the table in your favor, and you not only can make person happy, but learn how to feel to be with them. It feels with them. You can't change things beyond your control, but at least this will make them feel that they are not alone and somebody feels for them. This is basically what empathy does to one individual. That is why we need to change our communication the basics of communication, how to deal with the people, how do we see them. Disability first language draws attention to limitations. When we are talking to people, we talk about in terms of disability first and then the person second. But when you use that he is a blind person, we are talking about a condition, we are not talking about an individual. So if you say a person with visual impairment or blindness, it makes a difference. You are giving emphasis to the person first. Here in the first language, it shows only the limitations and the weaknesses that we see. It defines a person by the disability. As I said earlier, he is deaf and dumb, he is blind, he is mentally retarded. All kinds of other terminology that we use in the when we see people with disabilities. We don't see them as a person, we see them through the disability that they have. So that's why we need to change. The person first language focuses on the person first, not the disability. Focus on their ability and not disability. Attention to the uniqueness of the person. This is how you can have an empathetic attitude towards people with a disability. Is it okay to help? Yes, of course it is okay to, but it's not you just do it, but you need to ask the individual. When I have seen a lot of people, when they want to help a person with a visual impairment to cross the road, they will simply grab his hand and drag him all the way to the other side. It's not the way that they want to be treated. It's as good as treating them with more sympathy than with empathy. The person with visual impairment, you need not hold his shoulder or hand. You just offer them your elbow, they will touch your elbow and follow you. They don't need to be helped, to be dragged to cross the road. Even the previous slide, please. Okay. You assist a person with a disability as he requires or as you are told to do, not to take over completely their life and then do things that will be demeaning to them. So it is important to see that we need to help when they want the help to be done for them. Otherwise, we don't need to help them. They will find their way. So there are 7 ways we can show empathy. This is Amanda Morin, who has given us some rules, golden rules that we can follow in order to see that that you can help people with disabilities. It's not always easy to respond to student behavior with the empathy. But when you show students you understand and respect their needs, you build mutual trust and rapport. This is very true in the classroom situation where you don't simply take over everything of the student. You give him a space to grow within the student community. And that is why we are talking about the golden rule. If you want to be, you are probably familiar with the golden rule. Treat others the way you want to be treated. It comes in many of our religious texts as well as in the general precepts that we see. So you are probably familiar with empathy, but empathy relies on the platinum rule. Treat others the way you want or need to be treated. That's what we said now. Earlier I said about a visual impairment person, when he wants to cross the road, you drag him. It's not the way he wants you to help him. You treat the way they want and they need to be treated. That is the platinum rule she is talking about. This approach puts the focus on understanding what students need from you instead of what you think they need. This approach puts the focus on understanding what students need from you instead of what you think they need. The second aspect of dealing with the empathy is ask open-ended questions. Don't assume that the students that you assume that you know the student's feeling. It is important to be attentive to students' non-verbal cues to understand how they might be feeling. But it is equally important to ask them directly. But when you ask open-ended questions, students want to share what is on their minds and without feeling like you have already made up the situation. For example, asking something about him that's been hard for you. Invite more conversation that it is okay, like you having a rough day. Is that true? If you ask open-ended questions can be tricky for students who have language-based learning differences. To support these conversations, you can offer open-ended questions. I noticed that you have you are head down in the classroom today. Are you frustrated, angry, nervous about something? This is the way you can change that. Instead of accusing the individual that you have disturbed the class today, you are saying the class was disturbed because of some of your behavior. Then he starts thinking that you also convey that you disturbed my class because of your behavior. Then they would probably think uh, how to react and how to behave within the given situation. Set aside your own reaction. Responding with the empathy means the student's reactions come first. It is not your reaction. You don't have to bury your own feelings or agree with or accept their behavior, but to try to keep a focus on hearing students out, seeing the situation through his eyes. What he is going through at that moment in the classroom, we don't know. We assume through our behavior that he needs to be controlled, he needs to be disciplined, and so we do all kinds of other things, not fully comprehending what exactly is required for him, what is his in his mind that why he is reacting like this. If you focus on those issues, then your reactions will be more moderated. That is very important. And the fourth, use I statements to avoid blame. Use statements such as distracts the other students in the class today can make students defensive. Try turning the same thought into I statement. I felt that other students were distracted by your behavior today. I felt the statements allows you to talk about the situations without placing the blame on the individual. These questions also allow you to acknowledge your own feelings and may encourage students to consider your emotions. 5. Actively listen to what students say. Empathy requires active listening. Most of the time, I find the teachers don't listen to the students. It is always the teacher tells the students what to do, how to behave, what all to do. And it is not that they seek the students' uh, feelings about what they want to do for that day in the classroom. So this is not empathy. It is again still sympathy. The, that means giving your full attention, listening to students' words and tones of voice. When you use active listening, think through and state in your own words what you think you heard. You can then confirm by asking, is that what you are feeling? Telling me? That simple question gives students an opening to correct misunderstanding and show respect for their feeling and perspective. Don't jump into fix it mode. It's a quick fix mode. We are, as teachers, we always feel that we need to change the situation. We have to fix the situation. So it's our own reaction. As teachers, we are so used to feeling things that you may immediately try to find solutions. Sometimes more useful to just listen and understand what's wrong. Students might not even want to fix the problem. After you understand the problem, you can talk with the student about the possible solutions, what support they may not need, want from you. That will help you to understand better. And that is an empathetic attitude. Validate the feelings. Tell students they have the right to feel the way they feel. You may not agree with their choices or may even think they are overreacting, but it is important to recognize that the way they are feeling is real to them. You can say, your feelings aren't right or wrong, as a way to show respect for how they are feeling. That is why we talk about disability awareness has been the awareness given prominence in the last couple of decades, allowing it easier for people with disabilities and the society to develop an empathy for one another. Disability awareness helps in changing the stereotypical mindset of the society. When I was in Parivar, we I lost my presentation. It's gone off my screen.
Sir, are you done with the presentation?
Not yet.
Okay.
That is why we talked about in the in Parivar, when I was there, we had extensive public awareness, including parents, primarily parents, how to treat their children with respect and how to take care of them in a more positive way. And that not only helped the parents, but it also helped the children with the disabilities themselves. And we also had public awareness programs for general public and also the government people. It is very difficult to work as an NGO because the bureaucracy and the political leadership have only words of sympathy. They don't understand the real nature of the problems that people with disabilities face. So developing an awareness program for all these people will go a long way in creating an empathetic society in India. It provides a vast opportunity to get involved, and the kind of program that you are having now is equally important for them uh, to feel wanted. And that it's very important for all of us to promote awareness among general public, among the government agencies, and the parents themselves, how to treat people with a disability, more empathy than with the sympathy. Thank you. That's the end of my presentation. If there is any question, I will be able to answer.
Sir. Thank you so much for that knowledge. Like, I think it was quite detailed, and I feel like all of us took back something from it. Thank you so much. Also, would you like to share some of your real life experiences, maybe in places where you've worked? Any stories or anything that you would like to share?
When I was the national director of Special Olympics program, I used to take these youngsters for various competitions around the country and overseas. In fact, one of the students who was very helpless and he was not able to even eat properly within when the dining hall, we were camping at the National Institute of Sports in Bangalore, where all the national athletes also train along with them. It was amazing to see how they were able to make friendship with the national athletes, including P.T. Usha or any other big national athletes who were training at the time. And they didn't show much of a sympathy. There was more empathy from the sports community. And this youngster was unable to eat himself. Half the food that is on the plate would go back to the plate or on the table. Such a situation, in whatever it is, I thought we must give an opportunity for him to grow. I decided we will take him to overseas competition. We went to Austria, and there he was able to, first day we went in the evening for a dinner. It was winter games time, so it was minus 5 degrees centigrade in that place, and we were unable to eat the cold food which was displayed on the table. And I was thinking, I said, these kids are used to only warm food and not this kind of cold food. So I must warn the catering department about it. So first day they came and then looked at it, did not eat anything except took some few fruits and the soda that was there, Coca-Cola and other things. They just drank that and went back. And the next day I told the catering department that you give me any warm food that would be that they will be able to eat. If you know how to make Chinese fried rice or noodles, you can make that and give to them. They would enjoy much better than this cold food. So I went to the dining hall where the regular food was displayed, And this youngster who was a Down syndrome person, he went and saw everyone taking the spoon and fork and knife and then eating all the food and how they were eating. Within one day, he looked at that and he was enjoying himself with the same food which we rejected once. And he was taking the spoon and fork, how to cut the egg and the fruits and eat with the fork or a knife. Amazing changeover. How, if you allow, if you are with them, give them the empathy and allow them to grow, they will change. And he was saying, oh, bahut acha. Every spoon you will take, you would say, bahut acha. He was from Punjab at that time, very small youngster. He said, beautiful, very nice. I'm enjoying my life here. That is, given the opportunity, these people will change their life. I remember when we had the first national games for the uh, children with intellectual disability at Chennai, where 12 states with 1,500 athletes from all over the country, first time ever in their life, came out of their home, came out of their city or village to Chennai for participating in this game. And I used to usually ask the teachers if there is any change in the person after they participate in these kind of games. I was in Orissa, in Berhampur, and talking to the teachers and coaches, training them how to do Special Olympics. I asked them if there is any change that took place, any one of the child that came to the national games in Chennai. One teacher put up her hand and said, this girl was 12 years. She came to national games. She took part in 100 meters, 200 meters, and she won gold medal in both the events. And then when she went up on the victory stand, she put out her hand and shouted, I won. That is when you see the feeling of self-worth. When these individuals feel the self-worth, they change. And that miracle of that statement was, that was the first time that girl ever uttered a word on the victory stand. She was in the school for so many years, he did not speak at all. And that's the first time I ever saw her saying that I won. She said it in Oriya. I'm saying it in English, but it is a changing. Once our own attitude will change the way they perceive themselves and to become more uh, yeah, yeah, flowering individual. I've seen hundreds of people change their life like this. There was another individual who who went to World Game. He was a runner, and once I took them to the shopping mall, he found one skating shoes, and he wanted immediately to buy that for him. I tried to persuade him, this is not good for you, and don't pester me. But he kept pestering me, and I couldn't avoid. The next day, I went and bought a pair of skates for him that he brought. After a month or so in the city of Bangalore, I was going to one place, and then I saw somebody skating on the road, in the traffic. It's very difficult in a heavy traffic road that you can skate. But this individual who was never taught how to play a skate, he was skating on the road. I was shocked. I wanted to shout at him and tell him, I said, don't do it. Then I kept my cool and then thought, when he has the skill to do it, let him do it. He will learn. Everyone learns through trial and error method. But he didn't need any help from anyone. Like this, there are situations when they change. There was another such self-advocacy group meeting we had in Bangalore, and we talked about marriage and all that in their life, how they want to lead their life on their own, what do they need to do, various issues they used to discuss about the health issues, attitude of the families towards them, attitude of the community about them. They talked about the health care that they needed. They talked about marriage and their life with their partner. When they talked about the life with their partner, everyone said, yes, I want to get married. I want to lead a life, have my own partner, my own privacy, my own home. I said, fine, very, very nice. Every one of you think that you also need to live like others in the community. That, of course, it's a good thing to happen. But do you also know what all the implications of it? The cost of, if you want to have a married life, what all it requires. So one of them said, sir, I need a house. Yes. Okay. What else you need? I need to buy provisions. That means I need to make more money, and I need to take her to shopping, and I need to buy things, and all that is required. I told them to list out how much it would cost for them to have all that rent for the house, provisions for a month, and other necessities that we need to have for if health issues, how much money you require. All this, when they added up, it came to something like 25 to 30,000 rupees. They looked at themselves, they blinked for a minute and then said, oh, sorry, sir, this I cannot afford. Thank you very much. I don't want to get married. When you reason out with them to think about the consequences of an action, they will realize how they are able to do things on their own, realize what is their limitations. So I am earning only 200-300 rupees. I can't even buy a lipstick for my wife, he says. So they understand. But here we as a individuals, as a society, do not give them that opportunity to give them opportunity to come out of their shell and think about things for themselves and be an individual. And that is where the empathetic attitude would always be the best form of treatment to help these individuals to grow. And that I very much believe. And that's why the self-advocacy movement has grown. They were able to build their mm, uh, action plan for the next 10 years, all that on their own. Allow them to think for themselves, see the consequences of their actions, then things change. That is the kind of empathy that I create among people with whom I work. That's what I think I can talk about more stories, but I think it's good enough to know that this is possible with the people with intellectual disabilities. I'm not talking people with visual impairment or hearing impairment or physical, because they have their faculties in order, except that they have limitations about movement because of their disability. Otherwise, their mental faculty is in absolutely normal. So there is no need for them to think less than any other person. But it is very great challenge for people with intellectual disabilities. It's invisible disability. People don't even know what they can do or what they a teacher prepared system has not prepared them to think about them as an equal partner, to tell them how to do things on their own. We want to see one-way traffic of, I tell you to do this, you just do that. And that is what even today it's causing a major problem for individuals not being recognized as an individual, but as somebody who needed help. That is still happening. It has to change in order to see them, perceive them as people with the abilities. Then things will change.
Yes, sir, I definitely agree with you. Thank you so much for these stories. And we can move forward towards questions now. Yeah. So everyone can either speak or you can drop the questions in the chat box. And so we have one question here. Uh, it says that I'll read it out for you. It's in the chat box. So I am Shri Darshana. She's a social worker, and she says that it was indeed an enriching session. And her question is that can you suggest some ways to change our attitude towards people with disabilities?
We just mentioned about various ways how we can, each individual is different when you are dealing with people with a disability. As a social worker, you deal with all disability. Think first as a person. Don't think he has a disability. If you say that I am going to help a person, I'm not thinking about what he has or he doesn't have. If you think that this individual needs help, you need to ask him what kind of help is required for him. Instead of you assuming that they need this. This assumption is the biggest problem among social workers, among teachers, and anyone dealing with people with disability in this field. It is changing. I'm not saying that everybody is bad or anything. It is just the attitude that we have developed it to be a one-way traffic because we know and they don't know. That is our understanding that we need to change. They also know, they also know what they need. So you build on learning from them what they need, then you can be a successful social worker.
Thank you so much, sir. There's another question which says that what is the main reason what is the main reason for people lacking empathy?
Well, this is a common feature in all communities. It's not just only thinking about disabled community. World over, the idea is that somebody needs help. That is my attitude. When you think about that, he needs my help, the sympathy factor will set in. And it continues in every action of yours, even after knowing that you need to change the perception and then be a more empathetic person to understand and then to help the person. You are simply putting yourself in the place of that person and doing everything for them. That is where this will be a issue, that unless you change your attitude, you are not going to be a successful person with the empathy. Empathy needs to be developed. It takes time. And if there are some guidelines which I gave in the presentation, use those kind of techniques in order to uh, develop a sense of empathy. Don't look at them as need my treatment. They always call them as a patient, social workers or medical, paramedical or medical people. There are no patients. They are not patients. It's not a disease. First of all, we should recognize that it is not a disease that we are facing with. It is a condition that they are born with. If you think that you are going to treat somebody, then you cannot develop empathy. It's a patient and the therapist's attitude. That should be changed when you are dealing with the people with the disabilities.
Thank you, sir, for that answer. If anyone else has any more questions, they can uh, drop it in the chat box, or if you like to say something or ask any more questions, you can do so right now. We'll wait for a couple minutes. Or if you have any feedback you want to tell.
Of course, this is a very vast field of information. It is more like a book when you talk about empathy and sympathy. Technically, has a lot of ideas and recommendations. But I thought I would talk about in the perspective of practical ways how we can we need to develop empathy in order to help a disabled person. And within 1 or 2 days, it's very difficult for me to put all the information that you need together, because it's the first time after a long time that I'm able to speak on issues directly affecting the people with the disabilities.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for these insightful answers and for sharing your life experiences through stories. Thank you so much for the questions also that we had. It looks like there's no more questions that we have right now. Sir, anything else you want to say towards the end of the session? You can say that right now.
No, whatever I have to say, I have said it. But the only thing is, you should have an open mind in order to be a very good professional. If you have a closed mind of looking at them through the eye of disability, then we are not going to be a very useful professional, whether you are a social worker or a teacher or anyone else who wanted to help people with the disabilities. Come with an open mind, be a friend to them, then you will find a very different experience altogether that you will have when you are dealing with the people with the disabilities. That is my last parting words. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir, for such a beautiful presentation and beautiful chain of thoughts. Thank you so much for joining us today
Okay, you're
and
welcome.
devoting your time towards educating us for this topic. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Bye.
Bye, sir. Have a good day.
You too.
And we have shared the feedback link in the chat. So you can fill that out, and then you guys can get your certificates as well. We'll send you that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.